All right. Hi, everyone. So I am following up today with Tamia. And Tamia, I think last time we got to a number of potential options. And now I finished it off saying that I thought SCI was perhaps most likely, but I wasn't
Mm.
entirely sure on that one. And I think some other possibilities were discussed. I think Wesley brought up IEE, which I thought was a good third possibility. But after considering it more, I'm thinking IE might be one which is also worth considering, perhaps next to SEI. And I think II was another one which I threw as like a second. I
Mm.
sent you some profiles to take a look at. Were they helpful at all for you?
I found myself in each of them, I guess,
Yep.
but I thought that um the ENFP one really stood out.
Mm.
ENFP, um, especially when they were talking about, I think, relations and always meeting new people and discovering that kind of unknown qualities of that person is kind of what fascinates them, and
Hmm.
I think that can be a better, more positive way of saying that I kind of get bored of things, of
Hmm.
people. Um, S SEI was also pretty relatable in terms of taking care of myself, knowing my body, and what kind of aesthetics. I know I talked about aesthetics a
Hmm.
lot and making the, I think, environment comfortable it was. But I'm having a hard time actually remembering each of those articles
Okay.
in specific detail.
Mm. No worries about that.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it might be. I don't think IEI. Then I think we can discount IEI as a like it, unless something came up in that you thought was compelling. Um,
IEI is which one? Sorry.
IEI was the okay. So IEI is the one which is actually quite detached from the day to day, and
Oh.
very much in terms of where things are going, where what is the most significant and meaningful thing, and they tend to actually be a bit sort of disinterested in the things which aren't on the sort of more meaningful or significant path. And once they found that path, they're not so interested in the alternatives. Um,
Oh. Okay.
yeah, so that one not so much because I was thinking after I thought about it more, I thought I didn't think I made so much sense.
IEI. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So what I'd like to do then, if IEE and SEI, and in terms of let me actually, I should probably use more Myers Briggsy terminology so that it's more familiar to you as well. I realized I didn't do that properly last time. So essentially, SEI is meant to be sort of like an ISFJ. I
Uh-huh.
say sort of like. In some ways, it could be seen as more of an sort of an ISFP-ish ISFJ. It's a bit weird that way.
That is
Um,
weird.
and the ENF, well, the IE is basically like the ENFP.
Mhm.
Although saying that, a lot of IEs I've actually end up testing as an ENFJ in Myers Briggs, so it gets confusing.
That is.
One's ENF-ish, one is ISF-ish.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, so a way of telling them apart, I would say, is in terms of strength in introverted sensing
Mm.
versus a extroverted intuition, and that is basically an orientation towards either lots of different perspectives. So, new things, where could new things be going? Where could alternative ways of thinking or imagining take you? Versus essentially creating more of a sort of a zone or area of comfort and harmonizing that space and maintaining that space day in day out to be nice and pleasant. And
Mm.
I was wondering for you, which one comes naturally to you? Which one is the thing which you've always been able to do quite confidently? Whether that's deciding how harmonious your space is going to be, what different details in that space come together to create that nice, balanced, harmonized feel, or seeing the potential, say, in a person. What could they do? What are some alternatives they could be thinking about? Where might they be able to go in the future? Where what are some of the possibilities that lie ahead?
Hmm. Then I definitely think the first option out
The
of
first option.
yeah, I think so because sometimes I get kind of overwhelmed
Hmm.
by the unknown, but a part of me wishes that I can embrace it a bit more or be at least not as skeptical towards it.
Right. Yeah, that's an important thing. It's tolerance of ambiguity, of things being unknown. So an IE,
Mm.
that is some like ENFP, that is going to be someone who will something like go off traveling around the world, and they'll be quite comfortable with the idea that almost anything could happen, and they don't need. Well, I say they don't need. They actually do need more stability in their life than they innately realize. But for them, the idea of quite whimsically pursuing a possibility doesn't phase them because they could see all the different ways, or they feel that they can sort of imagine the different ways it could possibly turn out, and they're comfortable in that ambiguous, not quite knowing space. Whereas an SEI, for them, ambiguity without someone to help guide them through the different possibilities can actually be a bit scary. They kind of need to be able to see it and touch it and experience it to feel comfortable knowing that it is what it is.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like before I knew what kind of sickness I have right now, right? The endless freaking
Hmm.
um possibilities of what sickness I could have kind of frightened me and I was like, "Oh no, what if I had to what if it's actually severe or what if it's something little? What if I need to take pills or antibiotics, stuff like that?" But then I
Hmm.
went to the doctor and then they told me and then it was like everything's okay and I don't have to worry about
Hmm.
what could possibly happen, I guess.
Okay. So that example you just gave there is an interesting one because it's about your body and it's
Mhm.
about the state that your body is in. And
Mhm.
so it's sort of wondering or speculating about how sick you are. And I'm sorry, and as I know you said before we went online, you're sick. I'm sorry about
It's
your
okay.
being at your best. What are the symptoms, if you don't mind me asking? Not that it's particularly type related.
Okay, yeah. So I have like a sore throat. I get the chills.
Mm,
I didn't have a fever though, and so that one
mm.
kind of threw me off. And I was probably feeling very tired and sleepy.
Okay, so yeah, just it's a bit of lethargy, sore throat, sort of cold, slightly mild flu symptoms. You sure it's not COVID or anything like that?
It was not COVID. I did test
Ah,
negative, but what also threw me off was my sore throat hurt so much more than any sore throat I've had in the past.
oh,
So I was like, "Oh god, I think I might have strep throat."
mm,
But then I was like, that one was, like, kinda scary.
mm,
I saw, like, all the potentials of strep throat if you didn't, like, kinda handle it right away, so
mm.
I kinda actually stuck onto that possibility that I had it, and then that ultimately led me to make a doctor's appointment right away.
I see. Fair enough. The reason I'm pausing over that example is because it is kind of tied to the body and the idea of going to possibilities what it might be rather than sort of just feeling what it is almost in the body.
Mm.
That could still be an intuitive type.
Oh,
I've known, for instance, ENFJs, well, the EIE and sociologics, they can get very paranoid about their body and if they're sick, they can almost imagine themselves into an illness.
oh my god,
Um,
yeah, that was me last night. I was literally laying
right.
in my bed, and I was like,
Mm,
"Am I shaking right now? Like,
mm,
what is happening?" And I was, like, really nervous. I think I stayed up till, like, 2 in the morning just being like, "I can't fall asleep right now." Like,
mm.
I don't know what's going on, but it was definitely freaking me out in a way.
No, fair enough. So I want to maybe think of some other examples of ambiguity. So what I would say for an SEI, they kind of have to gradually ease into things. They have what I call a bathtub personality. They don't like sudden or new changes in their life. It's more they like to be surprised, but they need to sort of ease into changes. It needs to have a comfortable, natural pace or flow, and you can't rush them in anything because for them
Oh,
it's all about the flow in the day to day.
that sounds relatable. Yeah.
So that sounds relatable.
Mhm.
Okay.
I would get pretty annoyed when people are kind of like on my ass about things.
Yes, I remember you said that in our interview that you don't like people rushing you out of your natural pace.
No, because I don't think I can produce my best work if I'm rushed.
Right. So, is this I'm wondering, is that specific to you doing your best work in terms of your creativity, or is that a
Oh.
general not liking being rushed? Like if someone goes, okay, hang on, you got to get out of the house now. 10, 9, 8, 7. Is that okay? Are you still there? You've paused.
Sorry.
It's okay. You're back.
Okay.
Okay, but that kind of someone rushing you in general rather
Mm.
than specifically to do with work, is that something which is frustrating to you, or is that something which is just really with your work? You can't do your best work if people rush you.
I would say so, yes. More work oriented.
Mhm.
Um, but I think the emotion I do feel is just frustration and being annoyed, I guess.
Mhm. Okay. Hmm. I I want to see if I can explore some other possibilities here in terms of extroverted intuition and introverted tendency. So, are there any other examples that come to mind of ambiguity where you're not sure what's going to happen, um, being either a negative or a positive experience for you?
Um, Maybe signing up for new classes every semester and
Right.
uh everybody there's a website called Rate My Professor and everybody has mixed opinions on it, so you don't really know how the teacher actually is or what the class is actually like because everybody has such a different level of what is difficult or what is easygoing, what is harsh and stuff like that. So I like that 1 to 2 week time frame where you can drop out without getting a withdrawal on your transcript.
Hmm.
Because I think it's just enough space for me to figure out if I want to continue being in that class or not.
Hmm.
But yeah.
So you're doing almost like class tasters, and you're making use of the rules there. You can drop out in that window to experience a large number of different classes.
Yeah. But
Hmm.
I feel like I get lucky sometimes because I think I've dropped out only 1 class.
Okay.
So I got pretty lucky with the classes I picked. Um,
What classes did you pick and why?
so I took a psychology of personality class.
Uh
I
huh.
think this one is pretty obvious because
Yeah.
it was actually pretty interesting. And the class I dropped was macroeconomics. It was an in-person class, but the lecturing style was not my cup of tea. I felt like she was keep on branching out on all these different ideas and how it will all tie back to what she was talking about before. But by the time she ties it back, I have no idea what she was talking about in the beginning. And so I just had a hard time keeping up in that class. And I thought as the workload got more and more um, difficult, I would probably struggle a lot.
Hmm. So that's interesting. That lecture, it went off in different directions. It didn't tie back to what she said it would tie back to.
Yeah.
So
Or like I couldn't
that,
find the pattern in all the examples she was telling me. And that's
hmm,
what made it hard for me to connect it back to what she was trying to explain in the first place.
okay, that's interesting, and I think potentially quite helpful because. And can you explain what that pattern was? What was the pattern you're trying to? Well, the lack of pattern. What was the pattern you were looking for? What would have made sense of it for you, perhaps?
So she would explain a definition and then give examples of said definition in in situations and stuff, but I felt like I couldn't really see that connection between the definition and how it applies to this situation.
I see. So to define something, and the example she gave, the definition did not show up in those examples.
Yeah.
Now, are you someone who tends to rely on definitions quite a bit, or are you more about the examples without the definition?
I think I'm more for examples, yeah. To actually get a image of what definitions or how definitions apply to things. Because I could read a definition and be like, oh yeah, I get what they're trying to say. But then the example just kind of clears up the image, I guess.
Hmm. Could you give could you give me an example of this for me, perhaps?
I think when it comes to writing, like writing essays and stuff, I do think um, I am a bit more direct and my vocabulary could be expanded for my college essays.
Mhm.
So when I'm looking at synonyms or words that could replace and maybe sound a bit better in an essay, I have a hard time seeing how that new word would fit into what I'm originally trying to say while also trying to make it sound nice and easy to understand, if
Hmm.
that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense though.
Not. I'm trying to think. So you're writing something, and then you say you have a bit of trouble thinking about how that new word fits into the narrative or the sentence in terms of what you're trying, the point of what you're trying to say. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's
What
kind of
you
what
mean?
that's kind of
Okay.
what I was getting at. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're putting together a point. You're setting out a point in your essay, and sometimes you may have trouble finding the right word to fit into that point.
Maybe fit into like the rubric or the standard that my teacher holds because I do think I could get my point across with the vocabulary I do have,
Mm.
but because it's higher education, I guess they want something a bit more advanced and it's I guess putting in that sudden change. I'm a little clumsy and awkward.
Yeah, fair enough. Um, how do you like to learn new things?
Okay, now this is gonna sound so funny. I do think I'm a hands-on learner, and I really enjoy being in a classroom or really working with the material. Because then it's like, because I think I am in tune with my body, and when I do things, like even when I write stuff, it's like, sometimes it feels wrong when I write something, like doing a math, maybe like a math equation. I'd be like, it feels like I'm missing something when I physically write it out. So, hmm, guess like trial and error, maybe. Hmm. I'm just gonna end it with hands-on learning.
Hands-on learning. So it's potentially trial and error. Hands-on. Could you give me an example of hands-on learning, just so I know we're definitely on the same page in terms of what you mean by hands-on learning?
Like somebody kind of walking you through the process, and then you're kind of doing it to kind of get the gist of how things are working out and stuff.
Hmm. Okay. Makes sense. Actually physically doing it. That's the idea. Handle it. You have to be physically doing it. It's not an idea in your head. It's you're actually physically doing it in
Yeah.
real life. Okay. Okay. That's handy. Thank you. Let me see. Yeah. So I was interesting when we're talking about definitions versus examples. The reason I was I was wondering about that is because on the one hand I could think, oh, maybe that's TE versus TI in socionics, but I think it's for you the more concrete and real it is, the more you're going to learn from it. The sort of the seeing, smelling, touching, that's the doing side. That's the way in which you prefer to learn.
Yeah, I guess I like to prove things. Prove. I don't know if that's the best way to put it, but
When you say prove things, what do you mean?
prove things like, you can have like a strategy in your head, but once you implement the strategy, you'll see how effective it really is, I guess.
Yes, when you put something into practice, that's when you'll know if it actually will work or not. You can have an idea of how it could work, but you don't know until you've actually put it.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's an example of that for you?
I was literally playing checkers with my friend.
Yeah.
And I haven't played checkers in so long, so I was really struggling, but I was so keen on, like, what was going on inside of my opponent's head
Yeah.
to, like, move the pieces in such a certain way, and I think I was focused more on that than actually my my own strategy. Um, but I was like, "Well, how did you know, like, when to move things?" Like, I or to double jump and stuff like that. None of that kinda came into my head. And so he was like, "I just know. I just kinda thought it out." And then he implemented it, and then it worked, and I was very impressed.
Hmm.
I don't know. That was, I guess, the most recent example.
Okay. So actually, it was his strategy working out. That's what you were impressed by, rather than you having an idea of what you wanted to do and you trying it and not knowing if it worked until you actually tried it.
Yeah.
Hmm. Let me see.
Because I feel like when I guess, implement my own strategies, I do think it's dumb luck
Yeah.
because I'm not 100% positive that it will play out exactly how it does in my head. So when it surprisingly works,
Hmm.
I go, "Ah, nice." Like,
Hmm.
good for me, I don't know.
Okay. Let me think. I want to think of an example, perhaps outside of checkers. So
Yeah.
something where you had a plan, and yet you weren't sure if it was going to work, but you were positively surprised. You tried it, and actually, it actually did work. Any examples that you can think of which aren't necessarily in checkers?
Hmm, let me think. The first thing that came into mind was baking macarons. There's a very specific way on how to fold the batter, so I would
Yeah.
imagine myself folding the batter in a very specific way and seeing, like, the figure 8 in my head, and then when I put into practice, I'm like, "Hmm, uh, it looks kinda like it." I'm sorry, can you repeat the second half of what you were trying to
Yeah.
look for?
So having a strategy. So when I say figure strategy, I mean not necessarily like how to bake a pastry and figure eight. It's not necessarily a strategy. A strategy is kind of long term. It's it,
Oh.
it a strategy is like, for instance, um, let's say my strategy of increasing views to my channel is to make a number of controversial videos. That would be a strategy, because my idea is I'm going to try this out and see after a few iterations of me posting videos if it actually leads to an increase in viewership or not. But I think a strategy of, I wouldn't say in that particular moment how you craft something. It's more of a technique, if anything, if that technique works.
Hmm. Then I probably cannot think of anything on the spot right now.
That's all right. Let me think. Hmm. Let me see. I'm just trying to. When it came to that, that lecture you didn't like for so much because this lecture was trying to give you a definition and couldn't actually tie it to examples in your head which made sense. Is that something you find difficult often in lectures, or is it particular for that lecture?
Probably in everything I do. Yeah, even learning, like, MBTI definitions of things. You could read me the definition of what extroverted thinking is, but I wouldn't know until I see it and the way someone maneuvers through their life, I guess.
Okay. So, what is the definition of extroverted thinking?
That's just an example, but I'd say somebody who I always think of, like, get shit done.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody like, results driven, I guess.
Hmm.
Um what works versus why it works, I guess. If
Yeah.
I could really boil it down. So yeah, I so like my mom, I
Look,
think my
just
mom is actually an extroverted thinking user,
hmm.
and her and I were trying to tutor my sister on how to figure out how to do her math homework, but I took the approach of her book. So what I was trying to do was explain to her why the book is doing what it is doing, but my mom was like, screw what the book is doing. This is like the fastest way on how to get the answer without doing all this extra crap on the side and just confusing you in general. And I was like so pissed because I didn't think of that. And basically she cut off like 7 steps of my plan, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
for her to do like division between 2 numbers and still finding the same answer.
Mm. Yeah. I remember you were talking about your mum before, and she seems quite a logical person.
Oh my god, yeah.
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 Okay. So, what lectures have you really enjoyed so far at uni?
Oh, I really enjoyed chemistry
Mm-hmm.
actually. And doing labs and seeing how things freaking like explode and stuff. I
Yeah.
thought those were fun. Um, I wasn't really into school that much as a kid, and even now. So I guess I've never really paid attention to what lectures I really liked and stuff. But I just thought chemistry was always cool. Chemistry and like biology, like dissecting things that were cool.
Mm. Okay. So there's not there's so chemistry, right? So it's the explosions. It's sort of, is it the seeing it?
Yeah, I always thought it was really cool. Like I liked Breaking Bad too.
Oh yes, that's fun.
Yeah.
That is a fun series, and lots of extroverted thinking there actually.
Mm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Let me see. I got a slightly different tack because I want to know, why were you all right with doing this interview publicly?
Oh my gosh. I was actually thinking of you asking me this question, but I didn't think it would
Yeah.
actually surface. Um, I just thought it was something new. Like I know because the other typing sessions I've done were pretty much one on one, and so I thought it was actually a lot more comfortable in that sense. But doing this public interview, I was like, maybe it'll help me kind of be more confident in a public setting, or now that there's like an audience that I might be I'll see how comfortable I am with maybe articulating my words on the spot. But after that first interview, it proved that that was not the case. I was actually pretty nervous. Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
I'm wondering. Okay, I'm wondering, Tamia, if maybe we should do sort of like almost like a sort of a restart of a follow up session, just one to one. Would you like that?
Actually, I feel a lot more comfortable now.
You feel okay till now? Okay,
Yeah, because I
fair
got
enough.
the first experience out of the way, and it
Mm,
actually gave me a good idea of what to expect and stuff. So
okay.
I'm
Yeah.
not as nervous. Yeah.
So I remember feeling in the interview slightly on edge, and I wasn't quite sure what to do about it. But that's, yeah, I find public interviews, they do get a bit. There's more risk involved. I find, which is why I have that question, because sometimes it does, But if you're comfortable now, then that's fair enough. That's fine.
Yeah. No, I'm a lot more calm, not as anxious. Yeah.
Do you think there are any parts of the interview, if you remember it, the parts of
Mm.
it, that you felt that you being slightly uncomfortable, slightly on edge, may have changed your answers?
Yeah, I actually had like a list of things.
If you have, feel free, tell me, please.
Okay. The first one I wanted to address was the doormat comment. I would probably change my answer to be just more accommodating and flexible with other people rather than just not having a backbone or no opinion, no
Mm,
preference.
yeah.
And yeah, so like in a group setting, that's why I said I was go with the flow and laid back, but I think I was just trying to be flexible with everybody. Everybody wants to do and stuff. Oh, there's another one. Another one was what qualities do other people have that you don't have? And I think I said somebody who kind of like stands out, but I think I was really getting at somebody making an impact on that group, on the majority. Um
Hmm.
that I thought was really I thought would be a better way of putting things because I do think I'm a bit of a background character where I'm kind of in the corner looking around. So to see somebody like take a stand and everyone's looking at them and they speak and it has like some sort of impact on these people. I wish I kind of had that leadership quality, maybe.
Okay.
Okay.
No, that's kind of reincarnated the IEI, the INFJ typing as a
I
possibility.
I. Oh,
Like
oh
the
really?
INFJ. I'll explain why. Okay, because before when you were saying that, I was thinking someone doesn't care what anyone thinks about them. But
Mm.
actually, that is the impact, right? It's someone who has that oomph, that sort of front and center leadership style where literally people just listen to them and go on because they've got a lot of willpower, they've got a lot of personality, a lot of confidence. And
Confidence is definitely the
you
word.
admire someone who has that confidence.
Yes, because I'm looking at them. I'm like, you have my attention. I don't know how you did it, but you do. I am all ears.
Mm,
But I think I do come off a little weak and very awkward. I'm like, I don't know. And then people are like, yeah, whatever.
right. Okay, that's helpful. So, anything else? Anything else in the interview that?
Interview. I mean, this one's kind of I don't know if it really ties to this topic, but it was the occupations. I think I said
Yeah.
I wanted to be an accountant. Definitely dismissed the accounting. I know that it's so detail oriented and being at a computer, it has like all of the turnoffs I would want in a dream occupation. I'd
Mm.
actually say my dream occupation might be a tattoo artist because it
Mm.
requires art. Then I could have the most like indirect impact on that person, giving them something meaningful on their body. I work at my own hours. I would have my own chair. Um, pay. I make my own prices, and I thought it kind of like fit everything I was looking for. And also, I love tattoos with the aesthetic of tattoos and what they can like symbolize and stuff. I have like 4 tattoos right now.
Hmm. And what is it
Yeah.
about tattoos that you like? Says a meaningful impact. Could you tell me a bit more about that, please?
Yeah, like I know some people think that you shouldn't get tattoos unless they have some sort of significant meaning, but I think if it just represents something that was important in your life, it could be something as like a silly memory or it could be someone as a loved one. But whatever that meaning is, I think I'm really drawn towards it and creating some art that would perfectly represent that meaning. Um so yeah, like I right now I have the snake on my arm.
Yeah. Tell
Snake
me
on
about
my arm. It's very bold. It stands out and I get a lot of compliments on it. And I kind of think that like this snake is kind of how I want to be like someone who is mm, let me show it.
it.
So
Yeah.
it's like a rose. Roses are very powerful. It's red. The snake is black. It pops out. It just has so much power and confidence. He's a badass, this snake on my arm. And part of me is like, I wish I could develop that part of myself, but I just think I need a bit more experience.
This is again helpful because now, but also 'cause I was thinking, okay, you say this thing, you say this thing, you say this thing. I'm not entirely sure. You've now shown me something physical on you that corroborates what you've just said. So that is very very helpful for me.
Okay.
That is very helpful. What about your? Are you okay telling me about your other tattoos? What they
Yeah.
have?
So, okay. I have one on my arm. I have this
Yeah,
giant lady head, but her wings kind of signify death. They have skulls and spider webs. But I don't think of it as death. I think of it more as sadness, gloomy, maybe a kind of a rough spot in your life, but they're wings. And so her
yeah,
face has like these beautiful colors and she's full of makeup and life.
yeah,
So even though that uh not everything in life is going to go out the way you plan and the wings are still part of her, that sadness, those mistakes, the regrets are still part of her, but she really is like looking forward to like
Mm.
maybe the bright side, maybe of like what she can do now to really make the most out of her life. Is kind of how I interpret it.
So it's interesting because both of these images you have, they're not cuddly. There's a gothic romantic feel to them. There's an element of darkness mixed in with beauty, with a sense of there's definitely a clear mood and a sense
Yeah,
of that mood developing, looking forwards, but also going backwards.
yeah, and I think this also ties back in with my very intimate conversations with people, like these one-on-one, talking about your mistakes and what really makes you like who you are and stuff. Like I find it all very important, and that's why I allow people to say whatever they want. I don't really care if they have to kind of beat around the bush to not hurt my feelings. I try to throw sensitivity. I want something raw, and I don't want to use the word depressing, but sometimes just that's how it is. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, so I think it's all just part of like life.
Yep.
Life to talk about these like things that really shape you up to who you are right now. I think I place a lot of credit on my past to kind of show the potential that I have, at least. Sorry. Kind of got lost in that wording.
Nice. All right. This is clicking together for me. Because this idea, there's mood, there's emotionality, but it's not, it doesn't have to be wholesome, nice, friendly, cuddly. It's more, you almost want the raw, authentic emotionality.
Yeah, like the part you usually don't see, the not so like happy and wholesome, but like really what's behind it, what's
Right.
causing it. Yeah.
This is helping me a lot. This is and again the snake very clear. The confidence, the boldness. It's I think IEI might be right.
I ENFJ you said?
No, it's the INFJ.
INFJ,
Yeah.
yes.
The,
I
the,
get confused with the
that's
E's
right.
and the I's, yeah.
The reason I'm thinking INFJ, at least a sociological understanding of INFJ, and I actually say it's strictly speaking, it should be INFP because the idea in socionics is that if your leading function, like the dominant function, is intuition or sensing, then it should be a P because intuition and sensing is perceiving.
Oh yeah. That never made sense to me
Mm,
in the Myers-Briggs.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think introvert intuition is actually the first thing.
Oh
So
wow.
I think it's deep. This idea of meaning, this idea that things are deeper than just on the surface, and that there is something significant to find. That the day to day life is not actually telling you about. There's something beyond it or under it, which is more meaningful or significant in some kind of way. And there seems to me to be almost a searching for that as sort of a almost a natural thing you're doing. I was looking at sort of you got this idea of aesthetic, but
Yeah.
it isn't cuddly aesthetic. It's more it's hinting and alluding to something else,
Mm.
something which is again under the surface, more profound in some kind of way. And it's not quite you can't quite put your finger on exactly what it is. It's not something you can explain in a textbook. It's just there is a feel, there is an ambience of the profound in what you're doing in your creative process. And it's something about the tattoos is also almost finding aspects of that meaning and almost encoding that in the symbolic image on a person's flesh. The idea that it never comes off. You are committed to that symbol forever.
Mhm.
And it's a meaningful symbol. You've got to choose that carefully. You don't do it lightly. It really means something to the core of who you are in some kind of way. There's a finality to it. Um,
Yes.
so that feels a lot more in terms of the beta quadra, and I'll explain a bit more about the beta quadra in just a bit. But another thing is the suggestive function. The suggestive function is what you don't have, but you really value and appreciate in others. And for the INFP, you could say IEI, it is confidence and assertiveness in others. It is people who take charge. It's people
Mm.
who just they are leaders. You know that song "I Need a Hero."
Mm.
He's got to be strong. He's got to be fast, and he's got to be larger than life. It's that kind of idea. Um,
Mm.
the IEI or INFP, they want someone who has that big, larger than life, proactive, take charge, decisive personality. They themselves are not. They are. They can be. They are very almost. They can be almost a bit too accommodating in the day to
Mm.
day. And it's not that they are just all about keeping the peace. They are very. They are quite diplomatic, but they almost long for more sort of oomph and decisiveness. They almost can feel almost trapped in their heads, and they need someone to almost break them out of that in a way which is volitional, which is about just do it, rather than
Mm.
a this is how you need to do this, and this is what you got to do to be as efficient as possible. Which
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes I do just think I do think I overthink too much about something that there's
yeah,
gonna be a point where I just stop thinking about it and I'm like, we ball. Like, fuck it. I'm just
mm.
gonna go for it and then look what happened. I now have 4 tattoos.
Like I was talking to another IAI, and she said she almost trapped until every single possibility other than just do it is removed because of the
Yeah.
pressure she's under. And suddenly it's like a do or die. Then suddenly
Yeah.
they can do, and they feel alive in that sort of do or die moment. It's like they are longing for adrenaline to be given to them, and they don't know how to create that adrenaline for themselves. There's too much
Yeah.
oxytocin, too much sort of comfortable, nice, friendly. You can do the comfortable, nice, friendly stuff, but it's not really what they're about. It's almost the suboptimal solution. What they really want is the adrenaline and the do or die, but they need someone who can help to create that for them. And it's not a sort of a practical, logical. This is how you do this efficiently at 90% or 80% efficiency. It's no, you do this right now. This has to be done right now. There's no other option. Then suddenly the AI is broken out of their mental paralysis and they can just do it. Right. So
That was awesome.
I'm glad that clicked. I'm glad that clicked.
Wow.
Let me tell you about the beta quadrant. So the beta
Okay.
quadrant is there are 4 quadrants. There are these values groupings for the 16
Mm.
types. So the alphas, they're the nice, cuddly sort of almost childlike, oh, have a theory to explain the universe sort of thing. Betas are the next along. They're more like teenagers. And I mean,
Oh.
they're naturally they got a rebellious spirit. They're the ones who want to change the world. They want to, whether that is about finding some sort of meaningful, impactful path in their life, or it's about correcting the injustices of the world, it could be, or it's about being a somebody, someone who has their voice heard, somebody who makes a big difference in some kind of way. It doesn't need to be political, it can be artistic, it can be um, anything which has some sort of impact on the world. It's not just humdrum every day. There's a significance, there's a specialness to this. That's kind of what betas are attracted to. The moods and emotions, because they are emotions oriented. Not all of them are very emotional. Some are quite logical, but they like passions. It's not just set relationships. It's passions, how you're made to feel, and that how you're made to feel needs to be quite raw, intense, profound, and thereby real, rather than comfortable and nice and pleasant, which is more alpha. Um,
Mm.
that they need things to be harking back to something deeper and more primal or more sort
Mm.
of significant. They, in the relationship, for instance, having a fight is how you show that you care. It's that kind
Oh.
of idea. It's like if you're not having a fight over something, you don't actually care about enough to fight over it. And for betas, caring about something is really important.
Mm.
Now, out of the betas, the IIs are least assertive. They're the most gentle ones. They look like alphas because they're not as assertive as the other betas.
Mm.
But they're it's interesting. They're also a type which is outwardly very accommodating. They're very socially adaptive. They're almost chameleonic in that they can fit it and blend into all different sorts of social situations. They're very flexible with their ethics. They're very good in the one-to-one, but they're good at bringing the one-to-one into the sort of group. They sort of glue people together. And it's for them, it's about finding my people, my tribe, the people who connect up to this powerful destiny I want to find. It's not just anyone. But the idea is finding the tribe that's important. They, despite being outwardly very accommodating, are inwardly very stubborn.
Oh God, yeah.
Their logic, their thinking, it can actually be almost like an article of faith. This is what I believe in.
Mm.
They're not types which are about, right, I need to look at all the facts to change my mind. It's more, I know this at the core of my being to be true. And they may kind of look like they agree with you, but they're not actually agreeing with you.
Yeah, just what they say, smile and wave. Oh yeah, I would not say I'm outwardly stubborn, but inside I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, they're subtle. They're not. There's nothing obvious about an IEI. They are. They are. They're not sort of not blunt, unsubtle people. They are people who are diplomatic. You very very likable people. They're often the ones who survive in politically fraught situations because no one dislikes them enough to bump them off. They tend to survive very very well, but they know where they're going. They got but it's interesting in your case. The first thing we talked about in the interview that you didn't quite know where you were going, almost that there are lots of different possibilities. You are thinking, you're trying to find the right sort of path ahead, and you're considering accountancy, but actually no, accountancy isn't quite right. Now you're thinking more about tattoo, being more of a tattoo artist. I'm wondering if you might be an IEI is in that stage in life where you haven't quite found that path, and so you're being a bit more speculative.
I actually was pretty settled on tattooing for like
Oh, yeah.
a month and a half after I got my first one.
Hmm.
And but right, it's kind of like actually doing it, actually making a portfolio and submitting it to a tattoo artist. I was like, oh my God, I have to create like 30 pieces of artwork right now. Oh, and with school, it's kind of the excuse to not really focus on that right now.
That makes sense. Energy is going to be difficult. IIs are not very high energy.
I know, that's
They're not.
so true. Oh my God, I remember I related so much to the whole INFJ door slam, and but I was like, don't take it so personally. It's just that I need time to like recharge, and I need time to collect myself before I go back out. But yeah, the reason why I didn't, I think it was SEI. Is that the homeostasis type of
Yes.
comfortable setting? Yeah, it's like I can't stay at home all day. Not at least not all day. Like I will go insane. Yeah, I need to go out.
I mean, SEIs can and do go out, but it's more like my homeostasis is off by being in the house all day because it's too stagnant. I need to have a healthy walk and burn some calories. So it's just finding another way to maintain the homeostasis. But
that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But in your case, that it's not, the point is not even about the homeostasis. An IEI is looking for someone who can shake them by the shoulders, essentially. And it's not the homeostasis. No, take risks, do crazy things. And IEIs themselves aren't very good at doing the crazy things. But they want someone. They want a bad boy.
Oh my God.
They want a bad boy. They want someone who actually does crazy things.
Yeah. That's hella funny. Like my first ex-boyfriend was probably stereotypical bad boy.
Mm.
But he really got me out of my shell. Like he showed me
Mm.
all these like really great places, and he would just kind of text me out of the blue and say, "Let's hang out," and I'd be like, "You didn't plan this. You didn't even give me like a day before."
Mm-hmm.
But okay, like I'll hang out. I don't know. I just thought that was funny you brought that up.
Mm. Well, no, you hinted at it earlier in our discussion, so I just thought I'd it seemed to fit into what I was explaining just now. Right. Any questions that you have for me? Anything that I can answer to make things clearer for you?
I mean, that was pretty. I guess I'm a little confused on the whole like placements. I know there's like demonstrative and
Yes, let me do that.
yeah.
Okay. So the IEI, and every type has 4 blocks. The idea is 8 functions in 4 blocks, so 2 per block. Now, the first block is called the ego block. That's what's valued and also strong. It's what we bring to the world. And for an IEI, that's introverted intuition as a leading function, with extroverted ethics supporting that. So what does that mean? So for an IEI, first and foremost, it's this sense of what is meaningful, significant, that deeper significance under the surface of life, which goes towards what's most profound. And they're oriented towards identifying that, finding that, almost just knowing what is a significant path, which possibility is the brightest shining, and how the others are not so important and almost a distraction from that true signal. It's that kind of just knowing and feeling it out, which IIs are very good at doing. And supporting that is their extroverted ethics. So they're people who tend to speak in quite a romanticized way about what they think is most important. They don't use very textbook factual language. They use feelings and gists in their communication to give you the sense of what they mean, rather than how it actually is in a matter of fact way. They're very good at being, as I say, they're quite social, can be quite socially chameleon. They can blend in different social environments. They are they're very, very good at fitting in. They don't have trouble fitting in. They are the ones who can smooth things over in terms of the social environment when someone else is being quite disruptive and might have punched someone in the face or something like that. The II can smooth things over later. They're very good at doing that. Yeah, so that's kind of the idea. They utilize extrovert ethics to almost find the people they can also sort of bring and almost one-to-one convince onto this vision, this long-term purpose, whatever that is, whatever they find. It depends what the purpose is, of course. It depends on what your path is. If you're an artist, it isn't going to be, it's not quite the sort of vision for a country or anything like that. It's tattoos. It's finding meaningful symbols. But it's some kind of conveying of meaning to others, and people responding to that and being emotionally affected by that. It's a transference of mood and energy through, with meaningful symbology, you could say. So that manifests in lots of different ways, but that's kind of that ego block with extroverted ethics, the mood management supporting the ideas, the imagery, the symbology, the underlying deeper meaning, and it always has to be deeper. The idea is that introverted intuition is moving away from the humdrum day-to-day introverted sensing, and it's also focusing in on what's important, rather than with extroverted intuition, which is looking at lots of different ideas and possibilities. It's not about variety. It's about what is actually more important and significant. So we find with an IAI, you've got that ego block. You next got the super ego block, which is what almost the world expects from you, but you don't like very much. It's weak. It's unvalued. So first of all, you got introverted sensing. That's the sort of humdrum, day-to-day, immerse yourself in the details, homeostasis side. IIs can do that stuff, but they don't like it for its own sake. It's sort of not really the point. They want to go deeper rather than be in the day-to-day. It feels almost superficial to them. It feels not almost pointless to some degree, but they'll harmonize their spaces. They'll make things nice and aesthetic for other people to appreciate, but it's not really what they're about. They want the more profound, almost slightly more unsettling aspects of emotionality.
Mm.
The Then there's extroverted logic, which is the blind spot, the vulnerable function. So IEIs aren't good at taking in large amounts of factual information. They can get information overload. They also aren't often, I've noticed, they aren't very good at, say, communicating the matter-of-fact way. They communicate almost symbolically. They have nuances and suggestions and hints and meanings in what they say, rather than saying, oh, 95% of the time, a sheep will jump over the fence rather than decide not to jump over the fence. You know, they don't go into the dry facts, and they have difficulty absorbing that sort of stuff. They are not very practical in a sort of, you know, they are perfectly happy surrounding themselves with useless things. It's they think uselessness is perfectly all right, because for
It
an eye,
is.
because an eye is almost eyes are very almost aristocratic. There's something about them. They're the sorts of people who in another time would have kept servants, because they almost pursue this almost sort of slightly charmed existence, which doesn't involve them actually going and then sort of doing almost messy practical things. There's a romanticization of life, rather than the sort of, okay, you've got to work hard at actually making a car work, and you have to fix the car, and you've got to get the nuts and bolts, and you've got to put that together, and you've got to do this, and you've got to do that, and you've got to do that. And don't do it that way. If you do it that way, you'll get oil over the place. You've got to do it like this, and this is
Oh
how you do it,
God,
and that's how you
yeah.
do it, and that's how you do it. That's going to kill an IEI. They can't bear it.
Definitely kills me.
Yeah. I've known IIs who just started crying because they had a whole house to clean up, and it's just like, what?
Oh gosh.
It's just, I don't know where to begin. I don't know where to start with all this stuff around me. So they aren't practically minded, and they'd rather not have to deal with that stuff if they could. The super id is what's valued and weak. So we get first of all to the extroverted sensing, which in social is quite different to Myers-Briggs. Extroverted sensing is that impact. It is that force and will and in just acting, think fast, right now, present moment. No thinking about it. I'm not asking to fix it. I'm not asking you to figure out how the best way to fix the car is. It's get the car going right now. We got to do it. We got to move. Go. And it's that kind of just force of will. And that breaks an eye out of that mental paralysis to actually
Mm.
doing it, and that's what they feel alive. It's that adrenaline which they kind of crave in their life. That's the bad boy. That's the crazy person. Now, then there's the mobilizing function, which is introverted logic. This is a bit stronger than extroverted sensing. IIs can do it more. They kind of aspire towards becoming better at it. That's the sort of structural logic. It's the underlying philosophy. It's the code. It's understanding and grasping of the truth in some kind of articulated, logical sense. So IAIs can be they can be the true believers in whatever the structure is they've come to believe in, whatever that faith or that philosophy is. They can really, really believe in it, and they can be. You've paused. I'm going to wait for you to stop being paused, and then I'll continue. Oh, you're back. You're back.
Oh, it's interesting because you didn't pause. I was just like,
okay. So if I didn't pause, I'll continue. So essentially, it's they can be the true believers in this structure, and they aspire to becoming more intellectual, to actually understanding that truth, knowing this field or area in which they understand how it all fits together, and that becomes the truth. That is absolutely how things fit together and make sense. They, to some degree, can get a bit too caught up in that to the point where they don't then take in the facts, because the facts are more sort of it's exhausting to go through every single data point piecemeal. They want the definition, as it were, but they struggle to really. They need to really. They need things to fit together and make sense. They don't like cognitive dissonance. Things need to hold together coherently and consistently. And to some degree, you almost can't really change an IAI's mind. Once they've, this is the internal stubborn part. They can be very logically stubborn. The truth is absolutely the case, but it's a question of them actually finding what that truth is. And IAIs kind of grow into that over time. They grow into that intellectual space. Let's think of Barack Obama, a good example of an IAI president. He came across as very intellectual, but he was very charismatic. But he aspired to be an intellectual figure, to be the smartest person in the room as well. But yeah, it's almost like the idea for IAI is that it's like an academic structural intelligence rather than a practical how does it work efficiently sort of intelligence. So they lean towards one over the other. They don't like to look unintelligent. It really there can be a sore spot for them if being looked at while they're doing a task and people judging their intelligence on them doing that. They don't like it. SEIs also don't like it. It's that kind of the sore spots in the logic, because the logic is weaker rather than stronger. Ethics is stronger, and it's also stubborn, which means it's not looking to be helped by everyone else. It's more, no, I can do this. I can do this myself. Back off, please. I can actually do this. And for them, it's about introverted logic and not about the extroverted logic, which is the practical side. Now, the last part is the id block, which is not valued, but it is strong. So one part of this is the ignoring function, which is extroverted intuition for an IAI. So for them, alternative possibilities, the different ways things could go, they're not so interested in it. They can see them. It's not as if they can't see the possibilities that are alternative to what they're focusing on. It's just that they lean towards focusing on what is most meaningful and significant. Once they found that path, the other possibilities can go bye-bye. They're not actually important. That's distraction. But yeah, if they haven't found it, then they'll do some speculating so that they can actually identify the most important possibility of them all. But it's not for its own sake. It's only let out of the box by introverted intuition, and then it's put back in the box, you could say.
That's actually a very nice way to put it.
Thank you.
I never thought of it like that, but yeah.
It's all the 8 function models allow us to sort of think about these interesting interactions between the different functions. The last one's introverted ethics. Now, that one is every bit as strong as your introverted intuition. It's just not valued for its own sake. So what introverted ethics is that relationship forming. It's an awareness of pursuits. And it's not about... The thing about it is it's not about... it's not set. It's not stubborn. It's far more... Well, I feel a kinship with that person over that person. I know this person I feel I can get closer to, and I can formulate that intimacy with them. And that person, I don't feel as gel. That's not really my people, you could say. And it's getting a sense of who is my people and who is not so much my people. So there's a capacity to form very strong attachments, but at the same time, IIs are quite forgiving, you could say. They're aware of how they feel, but they can also change with the mood and the environment around them. They don't hold on to it strongly. So it enables them to be very good at working with people in one-to-one, building close relationships, building intimacy, and then that working with their extroverted ethics. So both ethics is together, you could say, to work very effectively with people on both the one-to-one and as part of a group and part of a team. But the idea is that the extroverted ethics, the moods, the passions, the emotions are actually more important than some sort of set attitude and some sort of set relationship, which is why they're more forgiving of ESTPs, who can sometimes treat people very, very well or not so well, depending on their mood, rather than what the nature of relationship is. And like the II is very forgiving of that. They don't expect a stable set relationship. They will manage that in a far more fluid, more adaptable way, essentially.
Mm. This was definitely information overload, but I
Sorry about that.
actually, but it's okay, because as I was going on with it, I was like, damn, this is like all I was kind of trying to say, but I couldn't really articulate it in that sense. Yeah, thank you so much for your analysis. It's a lot better than the Myers-Briggs one.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate it. Let me just see if any what people's thoughts are in terms of the chat. Yeah, I think people are. Let me see. I think people are kind of coming round. It's like between SEI and II, I see. Some people a bit surprised. Fair enough. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Tammy, it's been an absolute pleasure. I wish you a
Thank you for
lovely
your
rest of the
patience.
weekend. It's all right. It's all right. I like a nice challenge every now and again. It's fun. But
No, I watched somebody else's review on it, and I was kind of very nervous while I was watching it.
oh yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, yeah. But you know what? I think my I think I was about more confident with the session. So even though I probably could improve the way I wanted to say things, even in this part, I think I did a lot better than the first session. The first session.
I think this is why it's important to have these follow-up sessions because now you're coming into it having had a bit of more of a rapport with me, and with having gone through the interview beforehand, it allows us to look back at the interview and make sense of it all if it didn't quite go as clearly as we would have liked. And
Yeah.
we got there, and it's good.
Yeah, no, it's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Wishing you all the best. Take care, and thank you everyone for tuning in. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye.